Masterminds is a new comedy that was supposed to come out last year, but due to some bankruptcy with Relativity Studios, they pushed it back to this year, and it's based off a true story of a 1997 Loomis Fargo bank robbery. Well, maybe the first 20 minutes is based on a true story. I'm really not sure about the remaining hour and 10 minutes. But it's based off the character David Gent, played by Zach Galifianakis. He works at Loomis Fargo, a bank, and he's a very simpleton-like character, but he strikes up a relationship with his co-worker Kelly Campbell, played by Kristen Wiig, and Steve Chambers, played by Owen Wilson, uses this relationship, his crush, to make basically Zach Galifianakis rob this bank for him, and then the rest of the movie plays out with just a bunch of shenanigans, betrayals, all that stuff. I was actually kind of looking forward to this movie, even though the trailers weren't that great for the movie, and I was a little less excited when they announced that the studio gone bankrupt, so they had to push it back. I was still holding out hope for this movie because it's from the director of Napoleon Dynamite, and I actually think that's a clever film. I actually really laughed at Napoleon Dynamite. It's a really good movie, so I was a little interested in seeing the movie, and when I saw that Deepwater Horizon and Storks was a little packed on the reserved seating thing on the Regal website, I was like, well, I guess Masterminds is still an option, so I got the ticket for Masterminds. I reluctantly stopped watching Luke Cage, and I was on my way with the words of Jeremy Jahns in my ear of, this movie is worse than Vacation. Which is true. Jeremy Jahns made a review basically saying it's worse than Vacation, and those are some very strong words, and I was actually very worried about that going into the movie, and I don't really think it is worse than Vacation. I think this movie had me laughing a few more times than Vacation, but really, that's not saying much. I can name a couple moments where I did laugh. Zach Galifianakis' car door is missing, so he uses plywood. I thought that was funny. There was a photo montage that occurred that I actually kind of chuckled at. There's one scene involving a hobo that caught me off guard. A couple of Zach Galifianakis' shenanigans actually got to me a few times. Not entirely. A couple times his shenanigans are very groan-worthy, but sometimes they actually caught me off guard enough where I was actually laughing. And also the introduction to this movie and its blooper reel. However, both of those things aren't actually a movie. The introduction is stuff they found online, I'm sure of it, and then the blooper reel was just the actors having fun with themselves. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie failed to consistently have me laughing. Sure, there are a couple spots where it caught me off guard and I chuckled a little bit, but rarely did I ever just bust out laughing. In fact, I don't even know if I even busted out laughing. I think it was just a couple chuckles that I had. I was worried about Zach Galifianakis going into this movie, but really my biggest problem with his character was that he just wasn't that funny. But he does have a couple funny moments that are at least better than the other characters that are kind of unfunny. So there's that, and at least he's not as annoying as a couple other characters, like Kate McKinnon in this movie. Oh my god. Her entire role in this movie is just be weird, be zany, and it really doesn't work. It's totally unfunny. And I don't know if this movie was partially improv or not. I can't really prove if everything they say came off the script or if they just improv some bits and mainly kept to a script, but these are some Saturday Night Live actors like Jason Sudeikis, Kate McKinnon, Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones. These people have been on SNL before. In fact, Lorne Michaels, the creator of SNL, produced this movie. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of it was improv, and if it was, that really didn't work. And also, the main script of this movie didn't work, so you got a good combination of bad and bad. Owen Wilson, for example, was just really bad in this movie. I honestly can't remember a moment where he had me laughing. For the most part, it's like he's whispering the whole time. And I know Owen Wilson's thing is that kind of, you know, weird voice that he has, but for the most part, it just sounds like he's whispering the whole time. And I was watching it and I was like, why does it seem like you're whispering? I know you have a loud voice a couple times. Why aren't you raising the volume? Kristen Wiig didn't really annoy me in this movie. It's just she really wasn't all that funny. And there was one moment where she resorted to her Kristen Wiig singing thing where it really wasn't funny at all. In fact, if you've seen Sausage Party, whenever her character Brenda started singing, I didn't laugh at that. So Kristen Wiig, please stop singing for humor. It's not funny. I actually thought Jason Sudeikis was gonna be the standout because from the looks of him in the trailer, he actually had a funny line about a misunderstanding on who he was trying to kill. I thought that was a funny joke, and I was hoping that from the trailer he could actually stand out, and he really doesn't. In fact, they did something incredibly stupid with his character later on in the movie, and I was just like, okay, like, you can't sell this being based on a true story anymore, because that would never happen. And I know the makers of this movie made that up. I know they probably just took the main idea of the robbery true story and then just made up a bunch of stuff to fill in a movie, but if you're selling it being based on a true story, because in the trailers, based on a true story, I think even on the poster, based on a true story, and even in the movie, it says very briefly and during the credits, based on a true story. They're hammering it in. This is based on a true story. I think they should have done what Mike and Dave did, where they went, this is based off a true story, kind of, or something like that. That way we know that the Mike and Dave story, some of it is true, but the rest of the stuff that happens that seems like it probably didn't happen in real life, that means it probably didn't happen in real life and it's made up. With Masterminds, they just sell it on the fact based on a true story. So I guess they're trying to sell to us that some of the stupid stuff they put in the movie is actually real, and it's not. It's completely dumb. And it was really just the amalgamation of these really stupid characters also being unfunny that kind of just made this movie feel even longer by every second, because this movie's only an hour and 30 minutes and it felt like it went on for like an hour and 50. I can't say that I hate it as much as most people do, because as I mentioned, there are a couple moments where the movie caught me off guard and I had to chuckle a little bit, and Zach Galifianakis wasn't that awful in the movie. In fact, Leslie Jones, I think, was probably the best performance in this movie, even though she really didn't have anything to do and she really wasn't that funny also. But all the characters surrounding them were just stupid and unfunny, and I just didn't want to watch them anymore. The absurdity of the movie I couldn't get attached to, because I just kept getting distracted by the fact that, oh yeah, they're trying to sell that this is a true story when this clearly didn't happen. I think that this movie could have actually been really clever and funny, because as I mentioned, this is from the director of Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know what's happened to the guy, because this movie is the complete opposite of Napoleon Dynamite. It's not clever or quirky or anything like that. It's just a really stupid movie. But it's not stupid in a funny way. It was just so annoying, and I wanted the movie to end multiple times. So for those reasons, I'm going to give Masterminds a D+. I really failed to have a good time with this movie. I never laughed, I just chuckled a couple times, but chuckles really can't save a movie that is filled with so many unfunny jokes and stupid stuff. They even try to do some action sequences in this movie, and I was hoping maybe that could get my interest, and that didn't even work, so don't see this movie. But if you have seen Masterminds, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.